Good morning and welcome to MMM Musings, Monday Musings and Meditations with the beautiful Joree Rose in California. If you're here in Sydney, you know it's freezing, which is very Australia. Our temperatures just fluctuate like hugely. So it's like 58 for you here at the moment.
Yeah.
58.
Yeah.
And
Fahrenheit,
like and then last week it was, I had a piece of paper so I could translate. Last week was like double that or something. I don't know. Like it's just like we're walking around in singlets and it's quite hot, and now it's like, ooh.
Yeah, you got to layer up.
Yes. So welcome, Joree. I'm so excited to have you on.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. So fun to be, having a platform on which we can connect from all over the world. It still doesn't faze me that we can all connect like this. I don't take that for granted. So it's always fun to connect with people that we never otherwise would have had the ability to connect with. So I'm really grateful.
Absolutely. And everyone was kind of, and there's still the isolation part of COVID, but I think that this part of COVID has been amazing for businesses as well, for like humanizing businesses, because kids and pets are coming in and see part of their home, and everyone's like, oh wow, you're a person.
And you know what, I'm a marriage and family therapist, and one of the things that I've really practiced is my own self-care during COVID, and my client load has more than doubled. I mean, it's just, business has been great, but part of that self-care is there's some days I will show up for my client calls with no hair done, no makeup on, like I'm in my workout clothes, and I'm like, hey, you guys, I'm sorry, I didn't have time to shower because I just got off the Peloton and I just got my exercise in, and this is me showing up authentically that exercise was higher priority than my shower right now. So this is the reminder to you to make sure you take care of yourself and to just be human and to let that be okay. Like I never would have walked into my office with no hair and makeup done. And I mean, obviously I always have hair, but you know what I'm saying? Just having it pulled up, and I never would have done that. So I really appreciate the humanness it's bringing, because this is real, right? Like this is the reality.
Yeah, absolutely. I do hope I get to meet some of all these wonderful people in person one day, but
I know, wouldn't that be great?
I love the treat. So so you've got a bit of a story, well, a lot of a story. I was asking about who has had their life transformed with mindfulness meditation, and you said you've got a great story and you'd written 2 books on mindfulness for children, which is exciting. So would you like to start? I don't know where you want to start. Like, I just think it's really, inspiring for people to hear where kind of the low, the turning points where, and the transformation, like this was my turning point. This is what transformed me, and you can do it too, kind of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And, honestly, had I known that going through all of those hard times would have benefited me so well professionally. And I say that because the level of compassion that I have for the clients I work with, because I've gone through so much, and I'm able to say, here's the tools I used. Here's what it looks like in practice. If I can do it, anyone can do it. So I wasn't thinking that at the time, obviously, but I can reflect on the value of my own struggles to say, this is a pretty powerful story. And I hope it brings comfort or security or guidance to at least just one person, because I was going through it a little bit more blindly. So my story is, I was actually married to my high school sweetheart. We were together since the time I was 13 years old, never once broke up. And I've got 2 teenage daughters now, and my daughters are 14 and my oldest is going to be 17 next month. I can't imagine, they don't even have boyfriends. I can't even imagine if they did have a boyfriend, that would have been the boy they married. But that was me, at their age, which is totally bizarre to like see it through their eyes, right? And went to the same separate high schools, went to separate colleges, but stayed together the whole time. And I came from a family in which there was a lot of fear-based, a lot of trauma. The trauma started like pre-generations of the big story that was trauma in my family was my mom's parents were killed in a car accident when my mom was 16. And my mom was the only survivor of the accident. She was in the car, and they were hit head on by a drunk driver. And my mom became instant caretaker to her 2 younger brothers, and her Russian immigrant grandparents moved in, and her brothers were 7 and 13 years old at the time. So that trauma, you know, was so informed in my mom's entire life, obviously, and impacted a lot of the way I grew up, in which I kind of had fear and anxiety handed to me on a silver platter.
Yeah.
And she got divorced, actually at the same age that I got divorced, kind of jumping around in my story, but she got divorced. I was only 3 years old. And then when I was 10, my dad committed suicide. So by the time I was 10, there was a lot of knowledge of trauma, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. I had at that point, I think, been to like 6 funerals by the time I was 12, and they were all immediate family members. So my reality growing up is the world is a scary place. Bad things happen. The future is scary and unknown. And so I think that really helped me stay so tightly connected to my boyfriend, who became my husband, because I was so afraid. And I was really dependent on my mom growing up. I had trouble going to sleepovers. Like I couldn't be away from home, a lot of separation anxiety. And then I pretty much transferred all of that right from my mom to my boyfriend in high school. And as a result, I never went through that natural developmental process of any individuation, any separation. I did go off to college, and I did live on my own, and I never moved back home. So I guess there's a little bit of counterintuitiveness to my own thinking there. But in my head, I was really dependent, and I was still really fearful and full of anxiety. And I believed that all the decisions I made was in that effort to create safety and security and what was known. And ended up getting married at 24 years old. I had already had a master's degree in counseling psychology. I got halfway through my hours to become a therapist, which here in California, you need to have 3,000 hours of internships before you can qualify for the state exams. Yeah. Got halfway through those hours and decided I was miserable. Like I had no life experience to really help people. I was so young. I didn't really know myself.
Yeah.
So what did I do? I just wanted to have babies. So I decided to
something else to hold on to and protect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was really grateful, and especially where I live in the Bay Area, to be able to be a stay-at-home mom, that financially we could afford that. And my whole life, all I wanted was 2 girls. And my husband came from 2 boys, and his dad was one of 2 boys, and his uncle had 2 boys, and all I wanted was girls. And I got my 2 girls, and
you did.
I have 2 girls. Yep. Yeah. And you know, I'm a master manifestor, so I think it started way back when.
Yes.
Setting my intentions and putting it out there to the universe. And was a stay-at-home mom for many years, and loved, like truly loved every second of that. And at the same time, while having completely built the perfect life, really,
yeah,
I wasn't happy. And it's not even that I wasn't happy, I wasn't fulfilled. And I remember waking up one day in my early 30s, and I had my kids at 25 and 28. So, you know, I had a couple of young ones. I remember waking up one day in my early 30s being like, I don't remember how I got here. I just did what was next, what was next, what was next, what was next. And then I was at this point, was like, I don't know what's next. Like, this is it. I remember thinking, I'm like 32 years old. How am I ever going to know any more people than who I know right now? I remember consciously having that thought, like, why would I ever have a reason to meet more people? Like, this is it.
Yeah.
And it was this huge wake-up call for me of, there was grumblings all those years that I wasn't really content in my relationship, but I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
I was again so driven by safety and security and known that the fear of the unknown was enough to keep me put. But then I saw a quote one day that just really changed my life. And it's in a 9-in quote. And it says, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was greater than the risk it took to blossom.
Yeah, beautiful.
And it kind of shook me up. Like, you know, at some point staying stuck was harder than the risk to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I started going to therapy. And while I was in my therapist's office that very first day, I thought, like this room, this feels really good, but I think I want to be on the other side of the couch also. So I decided from that moment to go back to get my hours to become a therapist. I had to start from scratch again because I lost all the ones I had already started because you had to complete them within 6 years, and I was beyond that window.
Yeah.
And I continued the personal journey, starting with therapy. But when I got back into my hours to become a therapist, and there was a whole bunch of series of synchronous events that occurred that are like, that's a whole nother conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I really began to tune into the signs of the universe because I was really like asking for help. Like I'm not religious. I'm more just spiritual, or I was becoming spiritual. So it was like, okay, universe, help me out. Give me the signs. And then once I opened myself up, it was like I couldn't stop what was coming towards me as far as awarenesses, awakenings, signs of the universe, synchronicities. But it was in the internship that I was for my hours that I saw a book titled Mindfulness. Never heard of what mindfulness was, had no idea, had never meditated a day in my life. That was like way like woo-woo, like for other people. That's not what I did.
Yeah.
You know, I live in an upper middle class suburban, you know, neighborhood. Like, you know, everyone's here busy soccer moms, so to speak. They're not ones who will go sit and meditate like that. At the time felt very other, and I didn't know how to do that. Now it's much more integrated, which I'm really pleased about. And I really, again, series of synchronistic events, ended up delving into mindfulness practice, ended up taking a course, and it changed my life, even though I still wasn't really sure what mindfulness was, but I knew I needed to know more. But I did know that that very first class, for the first time, I was beginning to understand I had never once slowed down. And I think I was staying so busy to prevent myself from being with what was had I slowed down.
Yeah.
And
my teacher calls this a busy fool. So that we're so preoccupied with being busy and doing, along with the need to be safe, is that we can never actually feel and expand and be who we who we should be.
So I started to learn to slow down. And my God, that first meditation I was guided in, I literally thought I was gonna die. It was 10 minutes. And I literally was like, I'm gonna die. I literally think I'm gonna die because I cannot just sit for 10 minutes with my thoughts and with myself and in my body. Like that was that kind of.
Can I share with you?
Yeah,
very similar. I used to do Ashtanga yoga. It's quite a vigorous yoga, and then it was a led class. So you worked at your own pace, and then they said, "Okay, go and lie down over there for 10 minutes," and I would lie down there for 10 seconds or however long, and I'd leave. Eventually, the teacher came up and said, "You know, you've got to stay there longer." And I'm like, "How can I stay there?" It's like count your breath, do this, and I found it torturous. Lying still, I actually found it torturous. Yeah, I can totally relate. Now I'm like,
really hard. Yeah, I know, right? It's really hard. I once, kind of quick side story, I lead women's retreats. And well, when the world is opened up, I lead women's retreats at a beautiful retreat. It's a beautiful resort in Tucson, Arizona. And they have all these spiritual, like, it's amazing. It's called Marival, like Oprah goes there. I mean, it's amazing property, but they have really top-notch teachers and guides. And I did a spiritual reading with like an intuitive. And so it was actually pretty funny because this was maybe just 2 years ago. But when we started to sit down in silence so she could read me, she was like, immediately, she goes, "Wow, you drop in so deeply, so quickly. And normally people she worked with don't know how to drop in that much." She was so impressed at the depth of which I dropped. And I'm like, oh, it's taken years of practice to get there. It's not easy to do. Anyhow, so I decided, you know, I needed to know more of what this mindfulness business was. This was all brand new to me. And I really jumped in head first. And I ended up doing a 7-day mindfulness-based stress reduction retreat led by Jon Kabat-Zinn. For those of you in the mindfulness world, is like the grandfather of mindfulness.
Yeah.
in our Western world. And it was led by him and Saki Santorelli, who they co-founded the Center for Mindfulness out at the University of Massachusetts back in the late 70s. And that retreat was life-changing. And I mean, let alone I had never left my kids for that long. If I had, it had been with my husband and we've been on vacation, right? I had never left my family. I'll still never forget, as I was driving out of the house and down the street, my daughter was 6, my youngest was 6, and my husband at the time was holding her, and they were just like running alongside the car of her sobbing. But I knew I had to do it for me. You know, I had to. And I also had this dual purpose of raising these daughters that I didn't want to raise in the same fear in which I was raised. I wanted them to see their mom grow and have adventure and be challenged and be okay, which was the complete opposite than how I was raised to believe, because my mom stayed safe and never left the house, kind of thing. Not fully, but you know what I'm saying. Never opened herself up to that level of healing. And I vowed to just not end up being like my mom. You know, she and I both got divorced at 36 years old, and she's still alone and never really dated. And I vowed my life was going to be vibrant and not like that. But again, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. So I delved into this retreat. And from that, I delved in really deeply. I did a 5-day silent Buddhist meditation retreat. Luckily, I live here in the Bay Area, and there's a lot of resources and a lot of opportunities. There's an amazing Buddhist center called Spirit Rock, which is founded by Jack Kornfield, another wonderful, amazing spiritual teacher of our world right now. So I'm only a little over an hour away from there. So I've probably been to at least 12.5 day-long retreats there, where it's just beautiful days in meditation and guidance and practices. And
what a blessing.
It's such a blessing. You know, the resources that we have here are plentiful. And yet, at the same time, as I was delving into these practices, and this was about 10 years ago, I realized that there was not a face for it that looked like me. That was that suburban stay-at-home mom, right? It was a very, at the time, still hippie-ish. It was a little more woo-woo. It was definitely not really secular yet. It really felt other and separate. And so even at the time, and at the same time, I also got certified in a program to teach mindfulness to kids. So I was working at a school where I, every day for 4 years, would go into classrooms and teach kids mindfulness, pre-K up to pre-K, so like 3 and 4 year olds, all the way up to 8th grade, which was beautiful because it really gave me the opportunity to hone my own language. Because let me tell you, when you do your first mindfulness retreat with Jon Kabat-Zinn, it's like, I'm never going to sound like him. I'm never going to be him. So it took me time to find my own voice and to find my own language, and how do I show up and how do I teach this, right?
And who do you appeal to, and who's attracted, you know, who needs to hear from you, not Jon Kabat-Zinn. They need to hear from you.
Exactly. And, you know, so again, I wanted to be that voice that every woman could relate to and look at me and say, she's relatable, versus some of the other meditation teachers who weren't really relatable. In fact, I tell the story, I was on my 5-day silent retreat, and I kind of looked at everyone there as really separate from me, because this was in Santa Cruz, which is a very hippie-ish town. I think I was the only person who changed clothes every day. Even the teacher, who's a very well-known meditation teacher and mindfulness teacher here on the West Coast, he wore the same sweatpants with a hole in the butt, like 4 of the 5 days. Like, I was almost judging myself that I changed clothes every day, that I actually put on a little bit of makeup. Why? Just because it made me feel good, right? Like, and at the end of the retreat, they were helping us transition to going back home, and they were having us have gratitude for everyone who helped us be there. And they were talking about the people who watered our plants and who took care of our cats. And I'm like, am I the only one here with kids? I think I was. I was like, I was not in part of that group, but yet I needed this. So I, again, was getting this introduction to, where are these tools being taught that are not taught to just the people who are interested in meditation and maybe have had exposure to it their whole lives, but the people who really need it right now to slow down, to get present, to get out of their head, to get into their bodies, to be able to know themselves without fear of the unknown, which is exactly what this practice gave to me, that through all my years of training in both that professional sense, I was delving in personally, because to me, I had this really, really strong push. I had to show up in as much integrity as I could. I had this big fear that I was going to be on some stage somewhere and I was going to be teaching all these tools, and someone was going to stand up and point me out and be like, yeah, but you're not living that. And that fear scared the shit out of me, to be honest with you. Pardon my language, but like, I was so afraid of being out of integrity that how could I teach this if I wasn't embodying it?
Absolutely.
As deeply as I could. And that became one of my highest values, was authenticity in this practice.
Beautiful. Because there are actually people that just teach they just teach it and don't live it and breathe it. Yeah.
And over the years, especially because I got started in schools, I've done a lot of teacher and administrative trainings. I'm bringing mindfulness into education systems, and when they come to my trainings, they just want me to give them a curriculum. And I've learned enough over the years to say, if you want me to come train your staff, this is minimum a 2-part training, if not a 3 or 4-part training, because I can't just come and teach you a curriculum unless I've taught you how to do this for yourself first, right?
Beautiful. Yeah.
So it really got me to slow down and to sit with myself for the first time, because I was literally cut off from the neck down. I thought my emotions were cognitive experiences. They were not felt experiences. And I realized just how much fear and anxiety was the driving force in my decisions. And so the scary part was when I sat with myself long enough, I had to be okay with what I found. Yeah. And a big turning point in my life was probably my most single life defining moment. Again, another series of synchronistic events. Do you know who Dan Millman is? Have you ever heard of the book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior?
Oh, yes, I've read it. He's the author. Love that book. Yeah.
So Dan Millman's the author. And in 2013, I had the amazing ability to go on retreat with him at the Omega Institute in upstate New York.
It's giving me goosebumps.
So I was kind of right in the thick of all of this that was going on. And I couldn't believe I was actually there, because, like, again, the synchronistic events that led to it were just, I couldn't have written it if I tried. And so it was playing out perfectly. So this weekend was designed to be a peaceful warrior training. So the Friday and Saturday was cultivating the peaceful, compassionate heart. And then Sunday was the warrior training. And Dan Millman, in his spiritual teachings, he comes from a foundation of martial arts, and he was an Olympic gymnast. So for him, the warrior is really that embodied spirit of assertiveness, not aggressive, but assertiveness. So it's how you hold and stand and how you stand in your own power.
Incredibly important for a lot of women. Yeah.
Very much.
Some men, but a lot of women. Yeah.
Very much. And so here we were, Sunday morning, upstate New York, on a hot day, where Dan Millman was teaching us a martial arts routine to Lionel Richie. I'm like, how the hell did I get here? Like, I couldn't believe I was even there. And after we did this martial arts training, he had us break into groups of 3. And let's say you are part of my group. You are my long lost friend who I see across the room. And I start to walk towards you. Well, person number 3, as I'm walking towards you, throws their arm out, blocking me from getting to you. This person who throws their arm out represents self-doubt, preventing me from getting to where I'm trying to go. So we had to go through this exercise where I'm trying to reach you, my goal, and then self-doubt stops me. And then we go back to our starting points. And then once again, I try to walk towards you, and then self-doubt stops me. The third time, I'm able to push past the self-doubt, walk to you, embrace you, reach my goal. We had to take turns doing all 3 roles so we could see what it felt like in each of those different dynamics. We then didn't even talk about it. He went right into putting together 2-cylinder like cement blocks with a purple meditation cushion in between them and a plastic interlocking board across the top. And he then says to us, we have to break a board. And is it okay if I swear again? I don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah, no, you'll be fine.
My immediate thought was, I can't fucking break a board. But there it was. Self-doubt was like right there. There it was.
Yeah.
So he's putting this together. So you've got the 2 blocks, the cushion, and the board across the top. And there were actually 3 different boards. One was the equivalent of a real piece of wood. Then there was one lighter one, and there was a heavier one. And he said, we only got one chance. We had to pick which board we wanted to do. There's about 65 people in this group, ranging from like 18 to 80 years old, literally. He then says, what's the goal? And we were all like, duh, you just told us the goal is to break the board. And he said, no, the goal is to hit the cushion. The board was simply in your way from getting to the cushion. He said the cushion, the purple meditation cushion in between, represents your dreams and your goals, and the board simply represented your obstacles. So I'm still thinking I'm still thinking I can't do this, right? So then it's my turn to get up there, and I decide I'm not someone who likes to take the easy way out. So I decide I'm going to choose like the middle board. I'm going to choose the one that's the equivalent piece of wood. So I get up there, all the while telling myself, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. I'm kneeling down, I'm looking up at Dan Millman, and he's guiding me through this. And I still can't believe I'm even here with him, right? And he's guiding me through this. And I reach up and I'm looking at the board, and I come down, and I didn't break it. And immediately I'm like, see, told myself couldn't do it. So I confirmed my own self-doubt.
Yeah.
Couple of things happened. I was immediately filled with shame, because out of this group of like 65 people, I think there was only 6 who didn't break it. So I was embarrassed. I was full of shame. I was like, see, told myself I couldn't do it. But in reflecting on it, I realized I did 2 things wrong. One was I just did it logistically, like I hit with the wrong part of my hand. Mm-hmm. But I also realized my entire gaze and focus was on the board. Yep. So after everybody goes, he says, okay, raise your hand if you didn't break the board. I rose my hand. He says, I'm going to give you one more chance. So I had to decide again, which board was I going to do? Was I going to do the easier one, or was I going to do the one that I started off doing? What do you think I chose?
The one you started off doing.
Of course I did.
Yes.
So I get up there again, and I am now kneeling once again in front of Dan Millman. I'm looking up at him, and he's guiding me through it. He's telling me just to breathe, and he's telling me to focus, and he's telling me, when you do it, that's when you do it. Like, don't halfway kind of get there. Just like, when you do it, commit to doing it. And something in that moment shifted in me, where not only did I push aside self-doubt, and that was a conscious choice, but something shifted in me where energetically and like physically, my entire gaze and focus shifted from the board to the cushion. I felt that shift. Took my deep breath, looked up at Dan Millman, raised up my arm, came down, and I broke the board. And I let out like this, I have it on video, I let this huge whopping scream.
Okay.
I'll tell you, Samantha, in that moment, single life-changing moment for me, I realized, oh shit, I have to get divorced. Because I realized in that moment, self-doubt could no longer stop me from making the decisions I needed to make moving forward. That I no longer could allow fear and anxiety to be the thing that stopped me from getting to where I wanted to be and reaching my goals. And I couldn't have done that without the foundation of the years of the mindfulness practice underneath that. And that was July 2013, and we ended up getting divorced a year later. And it's been a little over 6 years now. And I still could not go through anything that I've done if I did not have these tools to fall back on, which gave me the confidence to not let fear and anxiety take over, to not let self-doubt take over, to learn to slow down, to learn to get out of my head and believing all my thoughts, to getting into my body, trusting my intuition. But most importantly, to believing, because here was the thing. I used to believe, as I told you, that the future was where the scary part was. Like the unknown to me equaled fear. It was like this big black abyss, right? But I went to a women's conference for an evening in San Francisco. It was just a 2-hour event. Again, kind of like these little life-changing moments along the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was a motivational speaker. This was before I got divorced, motivational speaker. And she said, I'm going to choose a name at random to get picked out of a hat. And whoever, if I choose your name, you're going to come up on stage and speak for 2 minutes. You heard like a collective groan over the 200 women in the room, like, oh my God. So then she says, what are you noticing right now in your body? And people are just like yelling out, like my heart is racing. I'm beginning to sweat. I'm getting pit in my stomach. Like I'm full of tension. I'm like starting to worry. My thoughts are spinning. She said, what you just named is simply energy moving through your body. She said, you're in a habit of labeling that energy as fear or labeling that energy as anxiety. It's just simply energy.
Yeah, you could easily label that as excitement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And she said, what would happen if you didn't label it as fear or anxiety and you used that energy and plugged it in and allowed the energy to propel you? Something about the way she said that in that moment, it clicked for me. Like I got it. So then she says, okay, just so you guys know, I'm not picking a name out of a hat, and you heard this collective sigh of relief. She said, but I will give you an opportunity to come up on stage if you want. And again, I was still in a habit of fear and anxiety. And I thought, I'm just going to observe it, notice it as energy, and use it rather than let it stop me. So I threw my hand up in the air. She called on me. She says, I'm going to give you an incentive. If you choose to come up on stage, we're going to give you a standing ovation on your way up, and we're going to give you a standing ovation on your way down. So at least you can always say you've gotten a standing ovation. So that sounded pretty good to me too. So she called me up on stage. I got my standing ovation. I have no idea what I talked about for 2 minutes, but I did it. I didn't let it stopping me. So breaking the board, relabeling my energy was this huge mindset shift that I needed to be able to recognize, wait a second. So here I had always thought I had the known and the unknown. And the known was like safe and secure, right? And then there was the unknown, which I was like, this is scary and fearful. But my problem was in the known, which was supposed to give me safety and security, I wasn't happy. So then I realized that it actually must be in this unknown where my happiness resided. That I got to see, and again, that mindset shift through these different events combined with my practice allowed me to recognize, wow, like the future, that's where possibility resides, not fear. Like I get to create this part, because everything I'd been trying to work on in the marriage and in my life, I kept getting up against these walls. Like it wasn't changing. And rather than expecting, my husband to be someone he wasn't, I realized, okay, wait, I'm the one who can change. And it's not his fault he didn't want to grow and change. He was happy with exactly who he was. And so why should I have judged that inability to prevent me from my growth?
Yeah.
And so I realized that the future is what I could cultivate. And I've been a master manifester, as I said. But it's not just intention setting and, having synchronistic events occurring. It's manifestation is a function of intention plus action. And I've taken a shitload of action towards creating it all.
It certainly sounds like it. Yes. Yeah.
And,
You're incredibly inspiring. And I love how when a while back you were talking about other women didn't have, you know, what you stay-at-home mums, it wasn't available to them, and that you were relatable. And that's the whole reason I created this little group, is because I want everyone to know there's always someone who's got a different story, who's relatable, who might speak to you and make it not woohoo, you know.
Yeah.
Actually, this is a powerful tool that she used that I can use.
And that's really been my focus in this work. And, you know, I started off teaching kids, and my 2 books that I've written are for kids, partly because I had a publisher who wanted to work with me, and I saw some, you know, a niche in the market that needed to be filled. But I'd much rather work with the parents, because that's where the whole family can get impacted on cultivating these tools. And so, you know, once I became a licensed therapist and I opened up my private practice, I've built a practice really quickly, partly because I made it such an intention for so many years to speak in the community. You know, PTA talks, teacher trainings, different wellness events. I wanted people to associate me as the mindfulness person. And so working for free for so many years and doing trainings really paid off, because by the time I opened up my business, I had a pretty solidly full, it was still part-time because I'm a stay-at-home, you know, I still was raising my kids, so I still was only working school hours. But for what I had, it was a pretty full-time private practice right off the bat that normally can take therapists years to build a private practice.
Yeah.
And partly because I think I was giving people something attainable beyond just therapy. And as a mindfulness-based therapist, I'm really focused on present moment, right? It's typical therapy. So I kind of bridge therapy and coaching. You know, if therapy is about healing the past and coaching is about planning the future, I'm that bridge in between. And I use mindfulness as the framework, because the past is important and the past is context, and we need to heal the past. And understanding the past is not going to help us in the moment we're having an anxiety attack, in the moment we're having an argument with our spouse or a challenging parenting situation, or in the moment we're dealing with the worldwide pandemic, or, you know, as unfortunately you guys had earlier in the year in Australia, these wildfires, which we in California have extreme, you know, wildfire season. So having these tools to me is necessary for how do we manage our day-to-day lives, because otherwise we are in resistance, denial, pushing away, pushing under the rug, and we're just grasping and clinging to what we can hold on to for more safety and security. And if 2020 has taught us anything, we've got very little control over any of it. And so the only thing, as I say, that we can control are 2 things ever. 1 is our breath, and 2 is our response to what's ever arising. That is the only thing, as I see it, that we have control in. And yet we're all still really reactive and fearful.
And controlling. And trying to control.
And it's not working, right? It's not working. And I see so many families just with, you know, really deep suffering from overwhelm and stress and anxiety. And especially since COVID hit, I mean, I'm not sure what it's been like in your area, but where we are, California was one of the first to really do one of the major shutdowns and shelter in place in the United States. And as a result, we kept our numbers fairly low as compared to like New York. Our kids are still not in school. Our kids are all online. It's still all virtual.
Okay.
We are not planning on going back until January. Some small private schools have opened up just in this past week at very limited in person. So we are still dealing with, you know, parents who are remote working, kids who are distance learning. Our COVID numbers are still rising. And so there's a lot of pandemic fatigue, and yet nothing's changed. The numbers are actually worse than they were in March when we shut down.
Wow.
So how do we continue to manage this ongoing anxiety when it's around us at every moment of the day?
Yeah.
And yet, what can we do? And, you know, I've said that COVID, I think one of the gifts of all of this, because I do see there are some tremendous gifts coming out of it, is it's forcing us to slow down. It's forcing us to sit with what is, even when we're uncomfortable with it, because we can't control that. But the challenge is it's also unveiled anything beneath the surface, right? Any of the typical ways we could stay really busy before, we can't do. You know, going to a yoga class. My yoga studio just started doing outdoor yoga. And so I've been once a week been able to get outdoors to do it. But even still, our fires here in the Bay Area were so bad. I literally, for 2 solid months, did not go outside and walk my dog.
Because of the smoke?
Because the smoke and the air quality was so bad.
That's what it was like here, yeah. Yeah, I was putting a mask on then before COVID. So
right?
I was like
yeah. And, you know, so even what we were able to do, we couldn't do anymore. And so we're forced to really sit with it. Yeah. And ultimately, when you sit with it, you begin to shift your relationship to it. And that's the key of mindfulness, is when you just sit and look at it, we're able to learn different ways of navigating than our old habitual patterns. And
a lot of people need support with that as well, because they sit with things that they just, whoa, yeah, where'd that come from? Or I don't particularly like that. And so, yeah, I think that's why I'm just so happy that there are so many people like you and other therapists and counselors in my group and whatever we can do to support people, because sometimes that's pretty challenging.
It's incredibly challenging. And you know, one of the things that I always talk about is, how do we reduce our suffering? Well, you know, mindfulness would say it's in being in the present. And I qualify a lot of the definitions of mindfulness, because I think a lot of it sounds really esoteric and hard to grasp in everyday practice. And so like, what does it even mean to be in the present? What does it mean to be non-judgmental? And I like to explain those things. So to me, being in the present sounds lovely, and we can't even do it all the time. That's not even the goal. To me, the intention is to not just be in the present, but more importantly, to recognize when we're not, to recognize the moment when we've drifted, because we normally would have drifted without awareness, and then we would have stayed on that spiral. Whereas, you know, I want to be able to just help people recognize it's not about being present all the time. It's about being aware when you're not, and asking yourself, am I unaware right now or not present on purpose? Or am I doing it in a way to distract and deny or resist what's coming up? And if it's on purpose, great. Just do so with awareness. If it's unaware, then bring your attention back, right? And the other thing is, acceptance is key. And people always will say to me, but Joree, how do I accept what I don't like? Well, not accepting it doesn't make it go away. Not accepting it only makes your resistance to it worse. So it's going to make your reaction stronger. So to practice accepting what you don't like is fundamental right now, because none of us like any of this. This is not fun. And yet, what a beautiful opportunity to practice what we can't control. Yeah. And, you know, I was talking with a client early on in COVID, and she even was like, my divorce prepared me for COVID. I agreed, you know, because there are aspects of our lives that we never thought we'd be in. We never thought we'd know how to get through, and yet we still get through them. Yep. And yet we still do it. Yeah. And, you know, I'm grateful every day that, I mean, my client load has literally doubled since COVID began. I now, because of all my work virtual and remote, I now have clients all over the world. Like, I literally tomorrow have a call with Romania, which is amazing that I have the ability. And I've started so many new programs also since all of this began. And I've just been really service and values driven. Like, so much suffering is going on, and I'm just grateful I've got the tools to help people.
And so I think, Joree, that's a perfect lead into and just sharing with us some of the online courses that you have that are accessible for everybody. Yes. If that's okay. I think.
Yeah, definitely. So as of now, I have 2 mini audio online courses. One is called Patient Parenting, and it guides you through 7. Oh,
sorry. I was just checking the comments.
That's okay.
Yep, go ahead, start again.
Yeah, no worries. So one is called Patient Parenting, which guides parents through a mindful parenting practice of how to really respond and not react, but most importantly, how to role model to your kids. Because I guarantee, you know, the last thing a kid is ever going to do when you say relax and calm down is actually relax and calm down. And if you're yelling at your kids to be quiet and go to bed, you're not role modeling the very things you're asking of them. And our kids are our best triggers often. And I know for certain My parenting 100% shifted for the better when I practiced mindfulness. And I've got 2 teenage girls. I literally, there's no yelling and there's no tension in my home. Literally. Not because there's no triggers, but just because my response to it is different than how it used to be. So patient parenting is one of the courses. And the other one, which I'm going to give your viewers and your tribe a special gift so you guys can access it for free. It's called Redefining Yourself. And
Lovely.
it again is an audio course. And these are really succinct because I tried to narrow it down to the core tools, because if anything, I know moms are busy. The last thing they have is a lot of time. So I wanted to provide a resource that they could do like the best therapy session you've had in 10 minutes is kind of was my intention. Beautiful. So the Redefining Yourself is a 7-step process of uncovering where you're stuck and guiding you through the mindfulness practice of acknowledging the thoughts, emotions, and sensations that come up when you're managing wherever you're stuck, and teaching yourself to have greater compassion. But the turning point of it not just being a mindfulness practice, but to actually be tools driven, because I'm also very like, I want action. I know I don't want to just sit in awareness. I want to change, right? And so how to uncover your core values as a way to stay present with your daily intentions, and research those that when you're values driven, it helps you to create long-term lasting change versus just trying to change something you don't like. So being values driven as a way to get unstuck. So that's what the Redefining course is.
Lovely. If you're there and you're happy to be receiving this, please say yay. Thank you. There's quite a few comments here.
Any questions?
A few ladies saying hello. Someone said the quote sounds familiar. Not sure which one that was. It might have been the
that the Anainen quote?
That's what I'm thinking, maybe.
There's another quote of her. There's another quote of hers, real quick, that also was really powerful in my journey.
Yeah.
It says, "I must be a mermaid. I have no fear of great depths, but I have great fear of shallow living."
Nice. I like that too.
Those 2 quotes by her were just like really powerful. Yeah.
And Rob's saying, don't forget us guys, dads.
So can I shout out, I'm going to give a shout out real quick to all the guys in your group. So one of the things that I manifested is my fiance, who we've been together almost 5 years now, but he is doing amazing work for men right now. And both of us have podcasts, so you can check out more of my work. My podcast is called Journey Forward with Joree Rose. And
we'll put the links, don't worry.
My fiance has a podcast called The Evolved Caveman, where he is and he's writing a book right now as well. And he's teaching men the skills of really how to be happy, because a lot of the skills in which men have been taught to be successful has been how to be successful in business, but those very skills are not necessarily what help you be successful in relationship. And so to teach men the skills of emotional awareness and communication. So if you guys out there want a great resource, check out John's podcast, The Evolved Caveman. He's doing amazing work right now. I couldn't be more proud of it. And he and I do couples work together, actually. We have a website called The Ultimate Relationship, where we do couples coaching.
Beautiful.
So,
nice.
Yeah. A lot of.
Thanks for asking that, Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Rob.
Great. And Catherine saying, wow, amazing. And the only 2 things that we control are linked together so much. That's Rob again. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, our breath and our response, absolutely.
Yeah, yes, they are linked together. Lovely. That is so generous of you, and I'm sure everyone's going to really appreciate that. I can resonate to the quote about being a mermaid. I love it. We'll be doing that for sure, says Rob. Awesome.
Yes.
So we will put all those links, as always promised. I'm going to ask you to just share a guided mindfulness technique or a little mini meditation about, you were saying about 5 minutes?
Yeah, that would be great.
You're happy to do that now, or do you want to add one more thing?
I want to add just two more things. Is one, anyone who, and I know that you're doing great work with this, but sometimes it's helpful to, the more we can hear it, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I do have some new offerings coming out at the beginning of January. I currently have a monthly membership that I'm going to be doing a new launch in January for around how to integrate these tools. But what I was going to say before leading into the meditation is I literally started practicing this in my car. And one of the things, if you check out my podcast, starting in October, I have shifted out of doing interviews, and I'm now through the end of December doing all guided teachings. Really, it's like, I mean, consider the podcast for the next 3 months to be a free audio course. Honestly, I am giving it that level of attention and
From all
insight and
the,
depth.
from everything we've just gotten from just chatting with you today, I absolutely believe it. I mean, it's been so valuable, insightful, and I've really learned a lot as well and enjoyed it
Thank you.
immensely. So
Thank
yeah.
you. Well, and
Podcast.
this is one of the barriers that I just wanted to say before doing the guided meditation is I did an episode that came out 2 weeks ago. I guess for you guys, it's already Monday. So 2 weeks ago, because I come out every Monday, it's still Sunday here.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was debunking the myths of meditation, because I believe there are so many reasons why we should meditate, but there's so many reasons why people get stuck in thinking they can't. Whether it's, I don't have time, I don't know how, it doesn't work for me, my thoughts won't stop, I get too restless, I get distracted. I mean, I go through, and then I realized in the next episode that there was a 13th. I forgot. So I started off last week's episode with the 13th that I forgot to include in the 12 from the previous episode.
Right.
But I think if any of you guys are having challenge in making this an integratable practice, check out that podcast episode, because I think it's really helpful to hear, just like the self-doubt experience I had with breaking the board. If you think you can't, you won't, bottom line, right? And so to just get really curious of what your own barriers are, because if we can get past that barrier to entry, well, then we get access to the tools unlimited. And so my barrier to entry in the beginning was I had no time. And that wasn't true. And that's still what I told myself. And so I used the time that I was in my car when I would, after dropping my kids off at school, to just be really present in my car. And of course, you know, kept my eyes open. I wasn't closed-eyed meditation while driving, but I used it as an opportunity to breathe and to just increase my awareness of what was arising around me, of just noticing. Because like, how often do we get in the car and drive somewhere and then get there and be like, I don't remember how I got here. Well, that was like me in my whole life, right? I woke up and like, how did I get here? So I could at least start with every day in my car being conscious and present for that drive. And so I would get in the car and turn off the radio and put down the phone and just breathe as I drove, and like paid attention to the color of the cars around me, the scenery around me, the color of the sky, the flowers blooming on the side of the highway, noticing if there was traffic and noticing the frustration begin to rise, and then recognizing, well, I didn't cause it, so I can't fix it. So the more frustrated I am, the only more frustrated I'm going to be, right? But the interesting thing was, what I noticed was just how much anything, right? Anything can be a meditation if we choose to look at it as such.
Yeah, I often say, you can just brush your teeth for 2 minutes with presence.
Exactly. And so to me, the foundation of that meditation practice, which is the formal practice that you're creating the space for consciously, informs your ability to have the mindfulness practice, which to me is, meditation, sure, add meditation to your to-do list, but mindfulness is not something you add to your to-do list. Mindfulness is something you add to your to-be list. Oh, did we freeze? It looks as if Samantha has disappeared. Not sure. It looks as if Samantha has disappeared. Not sure. Okay, so we can still see me. So I don't know what happened to Samantha. I was waiting to see, looking on my phone to see, oh, or is she coming back? Oh, we're back.
Hi. I've lost, I had to jump in my car.
Oh.
Because the internet dropped out and I really wanted to finish the call. So let me see if it's saying we're still live on Facebook. That's awesome.
Perfect.
So you were still chatting.
Yes, I was looking on my phone to see if it was still recording for me. So I was hoping that it would kick you back in. So
okay, that's fantastic. I just wanted to say before I dropped out as well, I think it was Catherine was saying this is such synchronicity for her right now. You might have seen that message.
Perfect.
So yay.
Well, I'm a big believer that when we're ready, the teacher shows up, right? So
yes.
So I invite you guys, and I'm going to guide just in a short meditation that, really to me is what a mindful meditation is, which is like pressing the pause button on the remote control. And, one of my barriers to entry when I first began was I had thought that I had to meditate for a really long period of time for it to be valid. And I really believe any meditation is better than no meditation. So even if it's for a short period of time, and I'm talking 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, meet yourself where you're at, to just hit the pause button, observe whatever is arising, accept it with compassion, and then come back to whatever you were doing. So that's the kind of meditation that I would like to guide you guys in right now. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if you're sitting down, great. If you're walking, great. If you're in your car, that's great too. And if it feels comfortable for you to do so, I invite you to close your eyes. Or if you'd like to focus your gaze on a particular object. And I invite you to notice where in your body you're noticing yourself breathe. No need to change or alter the breath necessarily. We're just wanting to notice, where is your breath in your body? So perhaps you're noticing your shoulders rise up and down, or perhaps you're noticing your diaphragm expand and contract, or maybe you're even noticing your chest rise and fall. Or you might be aware of the air passing through the tip of your nose. Wherever it is that you're noticing your breath, see if you can hold it in your mind's attention by saying the words breathing in and breathing out inside your mind. Breathing in and breathing out. And as you begin to connect with your breath and increase awareness of the rise and fall of each inhalation and exhalation, allowing your awareness to turn inward of your internal experience. So as you stay connected to your breath, expanding your awareness to just notice whatever thoughts are arising. No need to overly attach to them or believe them or jump on board with them. We're just simply noticing. So noticing the thought and then coming back into your breath. Back into the breathing in and exhaling out. And as you expand this awareness, just noticing and giving space for any emotions that are arising in this moment, without labeling the emotion as good or bad, positive or negative, just simply allowing the emotion to exist as part of being human. Knowing this emotion, whatever is here right now, is not permanent, nor does it define you. And as you allow yourself to breathe, the more you allow yourself to just be with what is. And continuing to expand this awareness to noticing any sensations or areas of tightness or tension or pain in your body. And as you exhale, allowing your breath to go to that part of your body where you might be feeling stuck or tense, and imagining the muscles opening and receiving your healing breath. And anytime you get stuck in distraction, just simply invite your awareness back to your breath, back into the sensation of breathing in and exhaling out. And I invite you to envision in your mind's eye, as you take your next breath in, to breathe in something that is nourishing and healing to you. And really imagine in your mind's eye what this is. Could be a memory, could be a person, could be a smell, could be a taste. And as you breathe in and visualize all that is nourishing and healing, as you exhale out, release anything standing in your way, preventing you from allowing what's nourishing and healing to take residence in your body and in your present moment awareness. And setting the intention to come back to this visual, coming back to this awareness of what is nourishing and healing anytime you are stuck, anytime you are overwhelmed, anytime you are in resistance, to remember that what is nourishing and healing is always available to you. It's simply a breath away. And if it feels appropriate for you to do so, I invite you to place one hand over your heart and the other hand on top, and gently bowing down to yourself in a gesture and posture of self-love and self-acceptance and gratitude for this moment. As I extend gratitude to all of you for welcoming me on your Monday morning there in Australia, or wherever it is that you're listening, sending you love and compassion all the way from the San Francisco Bay Area, knowing that each time you practice these tools, they ripple out to whomever you are in connection with. Taking a nice deep final inhalation as you breathe in, and exhaling out all that you no longer need to carry or want to take into your day. And whenever you're ready, opening your eyes, coming present to the room. Thank you so much for having me on today. It's been so fun.
Thank you so much, Joree. It was such a treat. You shared so much insight and wisdom, and really related to a lot of that, the family generations of trauma, doubt, blockages, presence. Just, yeah, everything was fabulous, and I think a lot of people got a lot out of it. I'm sorry, guys, I can't see your messages because I'm now on my phone in my car because the internet, when it dropped out yesterday, it dropped out for hours. So I thought I better just jump and drive to where it. Yeah, and I so appreciate it, and such a generous offering. I assume we'll give the links, and I'll show you how to get in touch with Joree and how to get in touch with that course and the podcast. And next Monday, which was quite interesting because you were talking about getting a reading and some other moments in your life of spiritual seeking and knowing and stuff, which leads us into next week. I've got Ari Sho, who's the medium of the West. And she's going to be on it, I think it's 10 a.m. on Monday next week, and that's going to be really interesting. So I'm looking forward to her as well.
To bring it into full synchronicity, my daughter's name is Ari.
Oh, well, lovely, lovely. I just love this. Like, today, this morning, I was, you know, a little bit, I had a really bad migraine over the weekend, like horrendous. It was a really nastiest one in a long time. So I had a bit of a hangover. I was a bit blur, and this has just lifted me, and I'm just like, this is exactly why I do this, and I hope everybody else enjoys it as well. Thank you for being with us.
It was so great to connect with you. Great to connect with you guys all. Hope to be in touch some more, and feel free to connect with me on social media, and I'll get you all those contacts so we can continue the conversation, because to me, it's just the funnest thing to talk about.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Lovely to meet you. As a one-handed.
You as well.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.